And we're live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Power Hour podcast, and thank you so much for tuning in. I'm here with Jukka Niiranen. Hopefully, I said that right, Jukka. We
Yes,
practiced a
very
few
good.
times before we started. But Jukka is a Power Platform advisor. He runs his own consultancy. I believe you're a solopreneur. I read that on your
Mhm.
LinkedIn as well, Jukka. So
Yeah.
we'll be delving into kind of some of your experiences with that. Jukka is also a retired MVP from 11 years, so been in the game for a long time, and has a lot of experience, especially co-founding the first Power Platform consultancy in Finland. Jukka, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. I mean, Yuka, for the people who haven't followed your content or know who you are, I mean, how would you introduce yourself and your introduction to the Power Platform?
Well, yeah, I guess it's important to know that my background is on the dark side of CRM systems. So I come from that kind of a traditional business application background, and also a factor that has influenced me a lot is that I started out on the customer side. So I didn't jump straight into being a consultant, but I have a fair bit of experience there on being the end user for these tools, and
Hmm.
that's kind of shaped my perspective on things quite a lot. For the past 5 years or so, I've been focusing on the low-code application platform story, and I've been quite a heavy advocate of using the tools to like empower the business users, giving control to the organizations who buy these tools compared to the traditional way of how it used to be, at least in the dynamic side, that the consultancies were sort of owning the things and then just implementing features and maintaining systems on behalf of the actual customer. So I always try to be closer to the sort of same side of the table as the people who are using these tools and want to make an impact with what they offer today.
Yep. And how did that kind of shape the way that you think about this technology? So I just a bit of background on me. I came in when it was the Power Platform, when it was established, but you've seen a lot of changes from when you started with the early CRM days. So how does that shape your thinking, especially since you run your own company and you do give advice in terms of the how people could be using the Power Platform for more efficiency? So yeah, how does that shape your thinking when you've seen so much and you've seen so much change?
So one benefit there is that or kind of me being not sort of coming from the side of the more traditional consulting business, but then having sort of the ambition to be more like the people who are on the customer side who are using applications, even thinking about user experience of like what's it like for the real users of apps to like encounter this. What's it like to be living in the world that is increasingly built from tools like this?
Mhm.
So I think I have a quite a lot of let's say way to I can relate to the kind of experience behind the requirements quite a lot.
Yeah.
I've seen that kind of I don't have the illusion that when you build something to the perfect specifications of that you get from the business, that it would be sort of the mission accomplished.
Hmm.
But rather, I see that okay, these what the technology allows and what people sort of describe there needs to be. That's part of the journey, but it continues from there on. It's you don't sort of like uh, you don't you don't achieve anything with just having the technology in place there and just having a system built there. There's got to be users. There's got to be way for people to understand that what are these systems about? What can we do with them? And not just from like a feature advertising perspective, of sort of like getting people to like adapt tools based on the ideas that the vendors or the consultants have, but rather finding the kind of compromise there.
Mm.
Balancing out so that's okay. Technology is not going to be perfect. It never does what it claims because the kind of how products, software products are promoted and sold. Of course, they are not directly for you. They are not personalized in the sense that they would be the perfect fit for your everyday needs in your business or the different parties within the organization who have to or want to use it. It will
Yeah.
be great to actually get to a point where people want to use these tools, but often reality is that it's something that you sort of have to use, have to agree to kind of play by the rules set out in the organization and like use CRM and record stuff there because it's what everybody is expected to do, so that something else works there, so that we get whatever reporting and KPIs and all that from it. And so that's one part of it. That tends to be what's in the old days, or in the CRM days when I was on that focused on that kind of use cases. Often it was such that it was the management, the leadership there who was the clear sponsor of something. They wanted to gain, sure, better results from the business, but also quite often it was about visibility and control, reportability of stuff, and that was a driver there. So systems are built or ordered and championed, or let's say kind of like supported by people who are not the users. And so much of the friction comes from that kind of disconnection between the users and then the people who design the solutions, and then the people who kind of give money to those people or give instructions on what to build. So I try to always like cut through that long chain there and like see that what's going to be sort of an impact from this technology. I think that's something we've gained now, a lot of new audiences that are more natural to like start from the user experience and the real impact, rather than looking at this, let's say, enterprise system style long chains of who kind of like who defines requirements, who implements things, and sort of like we can do so much more in a more compact team today, and distance between the user of the system and sort of the maker, the one who has the power to change the system, that distance is getting shorter and shorter all the time. And I think that's really is the looking at how things have changed. We've gone from sort of this to closer and closer all the time, and that's why I love it. That's kind of the good thing that this technology, these tools do in the world for people. They make lives better through that, making it narrowing down the gap there between those two parties or those
Yeah.
actions.
Yeah, no, definitely. And it's an interesting balance, isn't it? I feel like I've worked in quite a few teams, and the teams that I've seen work the best are the ones that have the direct contact to the people actually using the products that they're developing. Like I feel like a lot of teams struggle when you're not having any communication with the end users. Like I remember not even too long ago getting in a call with an end user, and we were developing a feature. And we developed the feature for just one marketing list, but then the user came in and said, "Hey, we need this for all of the marketing lists. We can't just have this for one." So we had to kind of go back and redo the feature that we added. And there was kind of a lot of work that we needed to do that could have been avoided. But if we just spoke to the user in the first place, it would have been much easier to just know what they wanted. And you explain the balance, which I think it's important, because you can't give the users everything they want. But I think trying to align all of the stakeholder relationships that you can is super important for a successful project. I mean, Yuka, you explained reporting in kind of what you said, and something I've really struggled with, and something I've been looking for, is how we can vocalize the benefits of the Power Platform to the people who are paying us to use it, right? You know, we're building all these Canvas apps, we're building all these reports, we're building all these automations. How do we actually know if they're making an impact? Like, what are some strategies that you do to say, hey, this stuff is actually powerful, it's doing this, and here are the numbers to back it up?
That's a very important aspect to address, because similar to what I said, that in sort of the traditional top-down model where management decides, okay, we are going to fund this big project that builds this big thing, then sort of the gap there is it when you do it bottom up, when you start from the users who are then able to mold the tools that they are using, then the problem is there that it still needs funding, needs support. And
Exactly.
even though the kind of the cost of actual systems how many people you need for building them, or how expensive licenses are. They are lots smaller compared to the top-down approach and what that costs, but there is still a real cost there. And I have seen really that's where many of the passionate app makers, the citizen developers, they struggle to gain sort of respect for what they do there within organizations. And it comes a lot from, let's say, the very different business model that Microsoft is applying for Power Platform compared to the Dynamics. Well, we can get to that later on. But so that's it comes from really the disconnect still is real. So we now have sort of moved from the fact that you don't first need to go through the top to get to actually building the thing for the bottom, but are we sort of able to then so I was talking about the gap between building things and using things. That is now very sort of narrow, but then the what happens there in the business, in the front line, where people actually do the business, and then sort of the levels where you are deciding and kind of allocating resources and all that. I'm not sure if it's that much issue today. One reason being the fact that the kind of wealth of tools that is in use has exploded. How could even even if you are an expert, if you work in IT and you sort of understand it, okay, what kinds of pieces there are in the digital puzzle of an organization, then you still struggle to like understand that big picture. Now, what if you are not a technical person, you are a business leader there, then what is it going to look like to you? So it's kind of obvious that we can't simply just show that, hey, here are the 10 or 100 apps that have been built by people in the business, and like this is what they look like, this is what they do, and like, yeah, expect that they will understand that. What does it mean? What does it mean in terms of like the impact, cost, and like alternatives? So how much would it have cost to like gain that benefit for that particular scenario through the old school ways of the top-down projects and like, or building custom software and all these other options. So it's not at all obvious. And yeah, I think that is really it's been the technology itself has matured so much during the past few years in Power Platform that it's not really the obstacle anymore. We've had like the pretty much tools for doing almost everything we need have been there, and they are maturing, and like it's very easy to recommend customers to sort of go all in with Power Platform. But still, people aren't really those who are then deciding on the budgets in big organizations. Then are they sort of seeing the huge value there? Often it doesn't happen, at least very fast. It's the kind of I think one of the more frustrating things about the low-code business and being a consultant advisor here is that it takes such a long time for that change to happen. So you cannot just like you can't just because you started from creating the actual applications. It doesn't mean there's any sort of faster to get across this long divide between those parties into a stable situation where people understand, okay, this is what we gain from it, this is our needs, and like this is how to go forward. So we kind of are stuck still in those silos, even though people have more tools at their disposal. But do organizations themselves have like the understanding to make smart choices about using technology and what to support, what to finance, who to support, what kind of people we want to, for example, give different roles in the organization? It's usually it can happen in organizations. Some are more further down that path, but in most places I see we are still sort of like in early days of like figuring out that this kind of way of using low-code tools, that it even exists. It's sort of a secret for many parties still today. It was like 5 years ago when we started the first Power Platform company in Finland. It was, of course, a brand new thing. People were really not at all familiar with like the idea that low code should be a separate box in their plans, something that is funded, that something that's managed, and all that. Today we're further along that path, but still compared to like established stuff like CRM systems and projects, then it's totally different ballgame. Even
Hmm.
without technology is pretty close, as
Yeah.
you know, on the platform side.
Yeah, no, it's super interesting. And yeah, no, I would definitely second that. I think with the low-code technology, a lot of more components get into it because, in some respects, some organizations are opening that up to citizen developers, makers, I think now they're calling them, and with that comes a lot of challenges. Jukka, you mentioned the Power Platform consultancy that you co-founded in Finland. What was some of the challenges of that? Because if I'm not wrong, you started that consultancy, was it 7 years ago, more or less?
Uh, well, 5 years ago actually,
Five
so
years
it
ago.
was the Power Platform as a term. I think it was launched in 2018 only, so that gives some perspective on things that. Uh, yeah, so kind of the backstory there was that I've been working for almost 20 years in the Microsoft Business Application ecosystem. So I started on the customer side. I was in charge of renewing CRM systems, and then sort of took more and more responsibility of those systems. Went to big organizations doing the same thing. Jumped on the consulting side and spent around I'd say 10 years being a Dynamics CRM consultant. Dynamics 365, of course, came along there at some point, but it was still that was kind of my area where sort of where the business happened. And throughout those 10 years, I of course I saw that the product portfolio from Microsoft was not only expanding, but it was maturing and becoming more mainstream. So that's something that really, via Satya Nadella's kind of vision for building those Microsoft clouds and like bringing them into the forefront, compared to when I started, when it was still a different. There was MBS, Microsoft Business Solutions, was a separate entity, and at some point in time, there was even discussion that is Microsoft going to like spin them off? Is going to be selling their CRM business to someone else? Is this a core part of what Microsoft is doing? And so from those days when it was still unclear that is this really, how does it connect with other Microsoft stuff that they're doing, all the SharePoints and Exchange and Office and all that, then sort of Dynamics became such a mainstream element and key part of the cloud that there was a lot to sort of evangelize and teach there to customers and also to my colleagues, to other people who are in the ecosystem. So that did kind of it kept me motivated and inspired, but I was still kind of then not entirely sure that the direction where it was going was going to be a good fit for someone like me. Because what was happening was obvious that from those old days of just having the CRM product, one thing, we started moving towards the different apps for different processes. So you started to have very extensive customer service or field service capabilities there, and it became obvious that you kind of have to like choose one of those things to really then go for. You can't just be doing the whole thing anymore. You can't just do CRM. It was becoming too big of a sort of a chunk to put into pieces and like assemble from all of those. You had to like choose what are your pieces that from where you build these solutions. But then it's probably different if you are in a big market like US or even UK. Then there's room for specializing in those kind of areas. But then working in Finland, it's a lot smaller market, and there wasn't really a good story to like focus on some specific verticals and like go 100% towards some corner of that ever expanding Dynamics suite.
Hmm.
But then I saw that, okay, actually at the same time when discussing with Microsoft product team, being an MVP, I had good visibility into what kind of what was happening there also on the sort of the platform side and kind of the layers before it gets commercialized into these licenses that are sold or app packages and so on. So there was things bubbling under there that were kind of looking that they might sort of like bring what we used to call XRM, which was not a product. It was a more of a concept, a way to use CRM, which today is largely called now Dataverse and multiple Power Apps. So you use that in a way to build your own applications and not follow any of the prepackaged first-party paths that Microsoft sold. So that was becoming a formal thing as well. And eventually it became Power Platform. And Power Apps became the license that you could buy if you just want to build your own thing and not be a customer of a Dynamics 365 application, be like field service or something like that. And I was looking at that, okay, I'm so much more interested in the platform story and kind of being open to just supporting the way of doing things, the idea of how you build on top of this thing, not necessarily the actual end features, products for specific processes. So like my strength was always in seeing kind of like the kind of how these pieces of Microsoft puzzle connect together. What sort of is the way to make most out of it, how to avoid pitfalls there, and sort of like preaching a bit of the low-code platform mentality before it was a thing even. And yeah, so then as mentioned in around 2018, the term or kind of brand of Power Platform became a thing. And then with so first at that time I was working at a telecom operator in Finland that also ran their had IT services unit. And I was at that time, my kind of the mission we had was that we wanted to sort of mainstream the core CRM capabilities for SMB customers, make it something that would be easier for customers to purchase rather than having to go through the project route of like getting things sort of built and customized for them. And it was so at that point in time, I get to know Steve Mordieu from Rapid used to be a ForceWorks at that time. And it was what Steve was doing there with Rapid apps, that seemed to be really like, okay, the smart way to do things when you are on the CRM side. And I tried to actually sort of replace our own development work and get us to just resell the stuff that Steve was building. But there was some friction there about how to get the kind of a commercial agreements in a fairly large Finnish organization, a big telecom operator, to like work with that kind of model. So it didn't really, it was we get to try something there, try to push some of our own stuff into app source, but it was, the journey there was too long to go compared to like the focus of that organization at the time.
Yeah.
And so continue on the long story there, that kind of gave me a chance to then think about, okay, what else can be done today in the world where Power Platform is actually a thing now. So it's a formal sort of not a license in itself, but the thing that is sold by Microsoft. What's going to happen there in how they get to market with that? So I had long experience about seeing the CRM consulting business and the Dynamics CRM practices, how they made their money and how they sold the licenses. And I started thinking, okay, there's so much value in these Power Apps and Microsoft Flow at that time, now Power Automate. And this is obviously, you could do so much with these and they probably will get adopted no matter what. But then what is the model for the partners there? What kind of a partner would Microsoft need for this particular offering? What would have to be different compared to the way that the Dynamics partners are doing business? So I was there then thinking about like how could we get this into our product portfolio in that organization at that time. I was thinking about like, okay, what are the incentives for getting the people who are selling solutions, who are talking with the customers. So for telecom operator, they had lots of B2B customers from small to large and like a big sales force of their own there. What would it take to like get these kind of tools, these low code application platform, whatever things into their portfolio, get them to sell it? And I figured that it's not going to happen. It's the journey is, the gap there is far too long. There are so many reasons why the incentives are not aligned for getting the traditional partners to really push for these things, go all in with it. There was too much. The ones that were already had like a mature practice on the dynamic side, for them it was just kind of some additional flavor on the side there, but not really something to like revamp their existing businesses and like not to undermine their own old models for how they sell the dynamic solutions, how they build those, how they ship the projects and products and all that. And so yeah, I started then discussing with a few friends and ex-colleagues who were in that domain. Not all of them were from Dynamics. Some had already experience with Power BI that has sort of like came before Power Platform, before Power Apps became a movement, and seeing that okay, what can Microsoft do there when they are sort of taking something into a mainstream and like cutting through in a way all the complex stuff and going for the citizens, for the users. That was, of course, something that Microsoft used as a formula for also Power Apps to like repeat what Power BI had done in some ways to the market compared to the traditional BI business. And then we also had people who were not who were coming from the Office side, so they had seen the Office 365 experiences, how Power Apps and Flow, which were initially part of that package before there was Power Platform. They were just things that you get with Office.
Yeah.
They had no other home there in the organization of Microsoft. And they had then witnessed the use cases and the ease of building solutions with those tools that address these a lot smaller use cases than for what you would buy a CRM system for. So those smaller apps, citizen apps in a way, or some stuff that would have been done by consultants with custom code, but now you could do it with just flows and canvas apps and so on. And so we had a good combination of people there who were like wanted to see that, or we saw that yeah, this will become something, and it's not entirely clear that what needs to be sort of who are the existing players who are gonna, I mean, become the go-to resources in this market.
Right.
And so we decided we're gonna try and be one.
Yeah.
And sort of that's what led to that point and that decision to then start the company called Forward Fiber, which was initially 5 guys in Finland, and it grew. It is still it's a growing company today. I jumped out from it 1 year ago after being there 4 years, building the foundation of it, and it was a wonderful experience of learning what it takes to then really not just kind of do consulting business, but to build a company organization that will then be able to grow with the market and allow the people there to grow as well. So lots of it wasn't just about kind of it didn't just happen because Power Apps became a thing, but it was definitely the perfect tool for us to like attach ourselves to and like sort of take a leap of faith in that moment in time, where it still wasn't really clear at all that is this going to fly or not.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's really scary. So how was that jump? Because like you mentioned, you were in full-time work for about 20 years at the time working with CRM. How was that jump from going to full-time work into having something that was practically almost like a baby, something you started from scratch and you had to nurture and grow and invest time in. And obviously, I'm sure you've had your own personal relationships that you had to manage alongside that. So I guess my question is, how was that jump for you in adapting to entrepreneurship?
It was a big jump, but I kind of feel that it had to be done. It was yeah. So it hasn't really ever been a goal on its own to then to to be an entrepreneur or to have your own company, but rather I was always kind of looking for where how to sort of build the kind of surroundings where I can sort of do my thing, be myself, and like not be sort of restricted by existing structures that
Mm,
are sort of blocking me from being able to make use of the things where I'm good at.
hmm
And also to then, like, of course, at the same time, be able to, in a way, scale things you do by bringing along people who can sort of not just to like learn to be like me, but rather benefits from that's the kind of you could say I don't maybe it's not like shared values, but sort of a shared direction of where
mm,
to go and sort of how to do things, how to work as a team and as a group. So that was the most interesting and sort of kind of educational and rewarding part of it, being able to then sort of take control of your own destiny.
mm,
And yeah, it was, of course, scary in many ways, new things to sort of figure out and learn there that you could previously just kind of assume that someone else is doing them.
mm,
That, of course, is I'd say that it was one lesson from there was that it's surprisingly things that you sort of then have to kind of handle and prepare for as you grow. They came at you faster than I thought.
mm,
So we got a very good start, but from having a team of really experienced people from the marketing consulting business and people who were some of them were MVPs and all were active in the community. So we had good connections there. People knew us in the market, and sort of there was not that big of a risk there in not being able to provide work for ourselves. We knew
mm.
that we could always then just like shift course a bit and like do more of the same stuff that we were doing with in our previous roles in working as an employee. But for that part about building then the structures there to like how to make it so that at one point in time then someone else when you are gone then the thing will carry on. That's
Mm.
sort of like the big sort of a difference there, kind of like the viewpoint that you can't really experience a bit unless you go and do it.
Yeah, no, definitely. And you mentioned something interesting there, which I always thought was a thing, but didn't actually see it until I started doing community work and I started putting myself out there and making posts and doing things like the Power Hour podcast. And it was how important a community is. And, I feel like if I was to lose my job tomorrow, people know who I am. People would be willing to give me that security, offer me another job, or there will always almost be work coming down the door. It's not
Yeah.
so much that you're isolated anymore. So I suppose my question is, do you have a similar experience to that? And how important is it to build a community nowadays?
So it's kind of it's always been the only way I know how to work. So
Yeah.
I've from in the days when it started to when the cloud kind of happened, when we started to get SaaS applications and smartphones and all that, the tooling that was available for your everyday work shifted in a way that it supported this mentality of working out loud,
Mm,
making other people see that what you are doing without there being any need for like formal reporting structures or like sort of even knowing that kind of like an organic way of people finding each other in within organizations and then also across organizations
mm,
in the online communities and the ecosystem as a whole. So that happened pretty much at the same time when I dived into the Microsoft Business applications. When I because my background in the early years after my studies was in marketing. I wasn't a tech guy. I don't have any IT formal training background. I was working at Nokia, for example, doing their CRM-related reporting and direct marketing campaigns in the early days when Nokia was still the uh, the company to go for mobile phones, and then also in other kinds of organizations, I was doing the kind of the operational making marketing happen there, not
mm,
designing graphics or anything like that, but sort of being the one who worked with the customer data there, and
mm,
that led me to then CRM. But then once I jumped into actually kind of managing and building and delivering the CRM systems with the Microsoft technology, then I discovered so many people out there who were like me, who were doing the same thing but in across the world. That was kind of the moment where I needed the. It was a brand new thing for me that whole technology stack, and I need to figure things out. And I was looking for sources of information. Who do I look at for advice? Because I was still initially working on the customer side. I didn't have a group of colleagues who were doing the same stuff that I was. I
mm,
was either the only person or one in a small team that knew even what dynamic CRM was about. So it kind of became the my sort of two co-workers started to be the people who were behind the screen there out there in the world, not in the same
mm,
organization. And so that really affected the way I kind of like see the world and how I feel that how what's the smart way to get work done.
mm,
And as a result, I then started to, as I gained more experience and had things to say, I started to share them on my blog and on Twitter and forums, and then that led to me then getting the MVP award long time ago, as mentioned. So that was in 2013, and kept stayed in the program for 11 years, which of course I would have never imagined at the time when I first got the award that it would be something I would be doing for a decade. But it kind of it wasn't that award was never a goal. It was just kind of the outcome from doing things my way.
yeah.
And still today, even now that when I've uh, left the program intentionally after 11 years, I still find that I'm doing pretty much the same thing as before, because it is to me the kind of the natural way to sort of exist in the professional world.
Hmm. Absolutely. And I feel like, tell me if I'm wrong, Yuka, but from what I've seen, a lot of people that I've spoken to are like afraid to put themselves out there. They don't want to share their opinion. They're afraid of getting criticism. But I share the same philosophy as you, where I feel like it's probably nowadays the only way to work. The internet has completely opened the world, and especially after COVID, when everything went remote and it did everything even more, and we can really see the impact of that. And I feel like LinkedIn especially, and again, please tell me if you've seen different, but LinkedIn especially, a lot of the Power Platform community is conjugating on there. And I feel like if you can put yourself out there enough, you have a lot of leverage to seek out better opportunities and to position yourself as a thought leader. And I feel like these are very important in differentiating yourself, ultimately getting you the freedom you desire, whether it's freedom of location, time, money. I feel like it unlocks a lot of doors in that respect. Yuka, you mentioned something interesting regarding your MVP award. So as we spoke before we started the recording, you retired from the MVP program voluntarily. So I guess my question is, why did you do that? Especially since, as you've said yourself, you don't see yourself doing things a lot different than you were when you were an MVP. So what made you want to retire, and how has that been for you?
Yeah, so that is kind of the funny part there, that if people just like observe that what do I share online, and how do I kind of exist there in the community, then it's I haven't sort of retired from that kind of activities at all.
Mm,
And a lot of it comes to the the kind of feeling of the reasons for why you are doing something. So the MVP award, as mentioned, it was more of it was never an intentional goal, but rather a natural result from being active there, and wanting to connect with those kind of people who were MVPs, and to learn from also Microsoft product teams. That to me was really I gained so much perspective from seeing things through their eyes. What's it
mhm,
like then in the mothership? I understand things so much better today, if I thanks to the kind of those NDA discussions that I was able to have there. And it's something that you couldn't really gain that any other way. So it was perfectly again like the right move to join the program there. But at the same time, I do really feel that it was the right moment to jump out of it after over a decade of doing things that way. And the way of doing things, and not the only reason, but one reason that you do sort of like what it affects you, is the kind of the measurement. I saw the program really, and also the community, and like channels and content creation changed quite a lot during that decade in the program, and it became so metrics driven in many ways,
mm,
which started to really be a thing that I was too consciously aware of while doing the thing that I do in my work in the community and elsewhere. So and I started thinking, okay, this is I'm not working for Microsoft. They are not paying me for it. I do this for my own reasons. Yet I'm still kind of I'm making choices because of what I could be logging as community contributions.
mm,
And especially then when I was also in the company that we founded, I was basically the guy who was doing most of the marketing and like content creation publicly. I was the one who was trying to ensure that also other people in our team gained visibility, that people saw that, okay, the team experts, what are we really doing? So I was kind of handling that, sort of like semi-officially being the marketing manager for the company, and at the same time being the community evangelist, being a volunteer MVP who is doing things not for paid gigs, but for like having a positive impact without any direct compensation from it. So all those kind of roles started to be such a mixture there that I kind of like it felt to me that I'm now I don't know why I'm doing this anymore.
mm.
There was a lot of it was that I would, especially on the MVP side, I was kind of like doing things because I had always done them. I'd always sort of been an MVP in a way. When you spend enough years there, then it's never guaranteed. I mean, you can't just like stop doing it and be an honorary MVP for the rest of your life. You have to be actively involved there, and you gain such great connections, such a great network from it. And then if you're not really, what comes a result from the network? Well, lots of communication. So you get bombarded with these great insights and messages and forums and channels all the time. Like you are always there. You can't really like switch it off even if you wanted. It follows you on your WhatsApp and in your social media and in your inboxes, and like everything is full of that stuff, which is it's about the same thing that you do also in work for paid products for the business. So the kind of there is no I couldn't like naturally sort of turn down the volume of that of the MVP business. All that all the wonderful opportunities, all the communication there. Then I figured that if that has become a distraction for me and something that is kind of stopping me from achieving balance in life, then the kind of I'm not really good at like staying away from interesting things just voluntarily. I cannot just decide, okay, I'm not gonna really read these things. I'm a bit neurotic in that sense that I need to be kind of on top of things with these areas that I kind of where I work and the channels that I follow. So yeah, I knew myself that the only way really to like regain some space there was to then detach a part of me, which was the MBA program, and I did that decision already over 1 year before I left the program last summer, and it was kind of then a long kind of a descending into this not retirement, but let's say new phase in the professional life, and yeah, it's I've regained some of that sweet silence that you kind of lose if you are all the time living in the middle of this ever expanding network of great things. There
Yeah.
can be too much of a good thing, and that's really what I experienced. That it didn't. I was enjoying it, and at the same time, it was also wearing me out. It was not gonna be sustainable in the long term.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I definitely echo that and say it is a lot of noise. I think with that award comes a lot of kind of I want to call it responsibility, but also a lot of, mental space that it takes of wanting to
Yes.
contribute. People reach out to you, want your advice, they want you to mentor them, those sorts of things. They want MVP, they want to be nominated. So yeah, I would definitely second that. I mean, I guess, Yuka, something that you and I are a little bit similar at just by the books I can see behind you in your bookshelf is you're very thoughtful in what you say. You're very transparent in the words and the posts that you put out there. And I suppose something that was important to you is, and please tell me if I'm wrong, but it's to continue to be transparent without being limited by the MVP award, saying things that maybe you wouldn't be able to say, which could risk your award. So you have something called the Perspectives Plus newsletter, which people can subscribe to on your blog, and the link will be in the description if you're interested in that. And I believe you do weekly posts on there as well. So I suppose, what is kind of your mindset in terms of reading and writing and having that time to think and be thoughtful in kind of what you do? Because everything I've seen from you is quality. So I'm sure you need to have a lot of focus in that respect. And what is that like for you?
Focus really is the kind of hard focus and perspective are the hardest things in the world to really achieve.
Mm,
For me, it's kind of almost always been that I I think through writing. That's why it's been so natural for me to then kind of not just communicate but develop my thoughts when in interaction by these asynchronous channels.
Hmm.
So I have things on my mind, a lot to say, but when it's done sort of like in synchronously, then I I don't see my thoughts. They are not there in front of me. Whereas then when I start to write things down and decide to dig into a topic or just comment on a thread somewhere, then that becomes more of a part of my sort of permanent search index in my brain.
Yeah.
So I don't need to then necessarily kind of intentionally focus on learning exactly this thing, but rather I create the connections there.
Hmm.
I see how things relate to one another when I'm allowed to be a bit spontaneous, but still to some extent more thoughtful in the sense that I can edit what I post before it goes out into the world.
Hmm.
So I see that and it's one of the reasons why I started the newsletter roughly a year ago in kind of a replacement of my blog. I had thought about that because I really did need a break from a lot of the responsibilities that I had as an MVP and in my previous company as well. And I wasn't really sure that do I have the energy for keep doing it? And should I kind of like do less of that? But pretty soon I discovered that I do have it in me. It's such a fundamental part of like how I structure the world around me that I'm able to describe it in words, usually written text, and it's kind of like if I don't get to write about it, then does it really exist for me?
Hmm.
It's kind of to some extent almost like the way for me to be in this world means that I have to be be writing.
Yeah.
And then the other perspective there is the transparency and like even before I was awarded for the first time an MVP award, my blog started out as being from the perspective of the customer. I was still on the customer side of CRM, and I was always very sort of upfront about the things that are important for people to know that don't necessarily work the way that Microsoft says. So, kind of bringing visibility into the things that had either become obstacles for me there, and things that I wish that someone would have told me that, hey, do it like this instead. Avoid these
Hmm.
things and go for that. So that kind of shaped my thinking there as well, because when I was learning the tools and the kind of business at that moment, I was still kind of like I didn't have the intuition or like knowing kind of who to follow, what to believe, and all that.
Hmm.
But when I did discover those people who were sharing their kind of the raw insights, telling things how they are, then it was always such a impactful thing. There was so much value in someone being openly telling that about the both the good and the bad sides of things, what
Hmm.
works and what doesn't work. And so that's kind of clicked with me as well from early on that yeah, those are kind of my values are so kind of aligned with that mentality of I mean getting things done, getting things to work, not getting things sold.
Hmm.
And as a result, haven't been a very good salesman. I often when I was then working as a consultant and dealing with the account managers or salespeople, then I often said things that they probably wouldn't have liked me to sort of confess to the customers. But still, that kind of that's I think that's the best way to earn trust,
Yeah.
and that's the
Agreed.
most valuable currency that you can have in the world, and especially in the new digital world, where AI can generate content just like that,
Hmm.
but it cannot generate trust.
Oh yeah.
And so that really is kind of it's an even more valuable currency today. It's something that you really should be aiming at, not the volume of messages, and not sort of like the not ensuring that what you say or what you present is as fancy as possible, not using Copilot to sugar things up, but rather being being a very being trustworthy in your
Mm.
own way, whatever that then means. And for me, it is about sharing my raw perspectives out there, and like telling about what I see and learn without having a hidden agenda about what I want to sell to you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I feel like I spoke to Steve Mordew about this and specifically around the concept of sales. Um, if someone doesn't want to buy something, they're not going to buy it from you. Like, and even if they buy it and it sucks, the chances are they're going to come back and return it. And I feel like what you're saying on trust is very important for people to hear because I think nowadays, when you are creating content, as you mentioned, there's a lot of easy ways to do it. There's a lot of escapes. But if people can see you're putting effort in your content and it's coming with transparency and thoughtfulness for the people consuming it, I think that generates trust. And as you mentioned, I don't think that there is a currency which is more powerful than that. Like I read a story, I think it was years ago now, about a consultancy who signed a client on. That client had financial constraints, and then they changed the management team, and a new management team came on. The consultancy that signed that client were really struggling. So, you know, for them to sign that client, it was very important for them to keep fueling their business. But the new management team told them, hey, you know, we don't need your consultancy anymore. Can you help us, you know, break out of the contract? For the consultancy, it would have been very difficult because they were struggling financially, but they ended up breaking the other team out of the contract, and they didn't have that work anymore. But a few months passed, and that client ended up coming back to them, and you know they were a long-term user, and you know basically fueled that consultancy until it made success. So I feel like short-term gratification for a sale or for some likes or some reactions is not gonna help you in the long term. But yeah, I really like the way you put that into words, and I also like the philosophy you have on writing. Like I feel the same way. I think when I put something on paper, when I put something on the screen, when I'm typing something, I've taken it from my brain and put it into reality, and then at that point you can edit it and refine it. And I heard a quote that said, "Your mind isn't for it's not for storing ideas; it's for thinking of them, and then you can find other place to store them."
Mm.
So yeah, I really like that perspective. Yuko, we're coming to the end of the episode. Thank you so much for your time. I always like to ask this question at the end because it's something that I think about a lot, and I think others as well. And ultimately, I feel like is what we're doing everything for. So, what does happiness mean to you?
Well, that's a deep question, but
Yeah.
I've come to realize how big of an importance it is to for me to have the space to be me. So
Mm,
have sufficient kind of room in your life to not just be adapting to the needs of someone else, not trying, even if you are, I mean, doing it for a good cause, serving people that you want to serve, and like making making results that are positive, but kind of to be happy and to be in a balance, then it's really you kind of need to remind yourself that you can be doing too much of that sort of serving others, trying to meet the either explicit or implicit demands from someone else, and then forget about the kind of like what then, what am I
mm,
doing it for,
mm-hmm.
and that you should be doing it for yourself, really, to be calm and in a balance. So that to me is the element of happiness, that you kind of need to see a path towards that state in everything you do. If you don't see it, then you maybe should reconsider not doing it.
Mm,
As mentioned, for example, the being in the MVP award program. So it was initially definitely improved my happiness in the long term. But then would I be happier today if I just stayed there and kept doing what I was doing and what I'm kind of the community work I'm still doing, but would it be better if I had a title, a sticker for it? No, I wouldn't be happier. I would be less happy. So
Mm,
those are kind of like the choices that it's you need some distance to like be able to determine that where does happiness come for you. It's usually
mm,
not from doing things that are totally different, but in a bit different way, in a good balance.
yeah, 100%. And I feel like on that, I really like what you said about being the space to be you. And I found a lot of satisfaction and purpose with helping others. And I feel like doing that every day, even in a small way, brings me a lot of purpose. And I feel like purpose, um, I always feel like happiness is it's a weird pursuit because I feel like the more you go after it, the less you have of it. Um, and I feel like purpose is more of a worthwhile pursuit just because I think uh,
Yeah.
having something that gets you up in the morning every day, I think that's really key. And for me, that's been helping others, and I feel like a lot of people would gain the same from that. And I'm sure you've shared a similar experience with your newsletter and with the content you produce. But yeah, thank you for sharing that, Yuka, and I appreciate your transparency as per usual, as I'm sure everyone at home does. But that's the end of my questions. I always like to leave kind of the last part of the episode for my guest to roll out the red carpet and then just say, let the people know what you're up to, where they can find you, and what you have going on. The floor is yours, Hugo.
Yeah, sure. So, well, I mean, at the moment, I'm doing what I do, so just kind of being the being on this solo journey for now. I'm trying to sort of keep myself available to many different discussions, and I love to help people who are kind of like who have a goal or passion for making more or like surviving with Power Platform in a better way, not necessarily by building something specific, but rather helping others to like navigate there and avoid those obstacles that are their own journey. So one way to do it is by my newsletter, the perspectives on Power Platform. So subscribe to that if you haven't been reading it. And there's also a plus version, paid version, where there's more content coming in the near future. So I try to get as many of my sort of thoughts and insights from outside my head into a written format, so that it can do some good for the people who discover it. And I share, I mean, shorter takes on LinkedIn quite a lot. I'm also on Blue Sky and Mastodon these days. If you want to see some other kind of content than just the well, I'm not very official or formal or business kind of a person on it either. So I try to make fun of the things that don't need to be so serious all the time. So yeah, follow me for memes about Microsoft's Copilot and licensing, whatever fun stuff that I like to poke my fingers at.
Love that. Thank you, Yuka. And yeah, all of the links will be in the description to everything Yuka has mentioned. And yeah, thank you so much for tuning in, Yuka. Thank you for being such an amazing guest. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Thank you, Yuka. Take it easy. Bye bye.
Thanks a lot for having me. Cheers.